What red flags were there in your past toxic friendships? Asked for space in the mornings for a week so I can study. Flipped out and acted like I was being unreasonable. She challenged literally everything I said with something worse that happened to her and would say rude things just claiming to be honest. Not feeling comfortable being honest without an overreaction. Emotional vampire. She unloaded all her problems on me and never listened in return. Nothing is ever her fault. Even cheating on her spouse multiple times and becoming pregnant by one of her affairs was somehow her husband's fault. She was a leech. And by all accounts, she still is. 2 girls I was friends with, different time periods of my life. Both of them used me as a raincoat, meaning they barely acknowledged me while their actual friends were present but asking me to stay with them after school or spending time with me only when they didn't have anyone else to spend their time with. Who registered sign. She would talk shit about all of her best friends. These were people who loved her. And she would constantly just put them down behind their backs. I can't even imagine the shit she would probably say about me. One day I said the wrong thing, I guess. And she completely dropped me. It was over some petty shit and it destroyed me for years because I was so in love with her. Years later, she ended up cheating on her boyfriend, who was completely devoted to her, with his sister's boyfriend. It was then I realized that I dodged a huge bullet. I was depressed. They offered to kill me. No offense, but this is so f***ed up that it's funny. One-upping you and shutting you down. I had a friend last year who I connected with on many levels. But she literally couldn't go one conversation without doing both of these to me. Example. I'd say, "Ugh. I'm coming down with a cold and I've gotta go to work." She snaps, "Wow, too bad for you." I've done that every day for a week. Or in a group. I bring up an idea of where to eat. "That place sucks. Let's go too." If they're randomly rude and cutting towards you for no reason, they aren't your friend. They resent you. And aren't mature enough to just cut you off. Do yourself a favor and find another friend. If you are having a problem and you go to them, they quickly relate it to their problems and take over the conversation. I'll tell you the signs in my current toxic friendship. I don't hear from her when her life is great. Just when she has problems. She only calls me for advice, which she doesn't follow. Ever. I recently found out that she calls at least 5-6 people to talk about her problems. She asks them for advice, which she ignores. She just likes the attention. She calls us all back and has us comfort her when her world implodes after ignoring our advice. If any of us are honest with her about what she's doing wrong, she blocks us on social media and her phone. She'll go a few months without talking to someone. They only wanted to talk to me whenever they felt lonely, but never wanted to talk to me when they were fine. She wasn't responding to messages for days but spammed and got pissed off if I don't respond within an hour. They only wanted to drink. If we were just chilling at my house they would bring a 12-pack. Then complain they were bored and wanted to go to the bar. Before I knew it I was getting drunk 3-4 times a week. Our friendship used to be playing games, hanging out with friends. But it devolved into just sitting on a couch drinking. I was always the one who texted first. They never actually initiated contact with me. The only thing I can say in defense of that person, because I've suffered from this, is the anxiety associated with initiating a conversation in general. Many times we want to text you. We want to talk. But we also get these intrusive thoughts such as, what if they don't want to talk to me? Or am I bothering them by texting? Full stop. The thoughts are completely irrational and usually based on nothing, but they can't be helped and they invoke a sort of fear that eventually just makes us put down the phone and not call. Everybody she knew was out to get her but not me because I was special. The constant put downs, insults that are only jokes. Cut them off. I used to be a toxic friend with a very possessive streak. I resented a friend of mine having other friends or even worse. love interests, and used a mix of subtle jokey put-downs and unpredictable cold disinterest to slowly destroy their confidence whenever I wanted to punish a behavior. I moved towns and joined a new friend group during high school. There was always a couple people in the group who got a pass for being obnoxious or doing something f***ed up by everyone else saying, oh, that's just X. That's just the way he is. One of them eventually got shunned for punching his girlfriend at a party. The other one still to this day gets a pass by a lot of people just because they've been friends since they were kids. I wouldn't be surprised if he was still stealing their booze and trying to FCK girls who are in relationships. So yeah. Watch out for peripheral friends and acquaintances being conditioned to accept their shitty behavior. It's probably only going to get worse. I was expected to put her first on my days off. But the second she got a new boyfriend, she would disappear and not answer her phone for weeks at a time. I was then always expected to pick up the pieces and spend 24/7 with her when her relationships would fail. He was barely able to afford anything and we were living together at the time. His job kept promising a promotion which never came. He was a driver and was pretty lazy. I'd loan him a few bucks here and a few dollars there. It started adding up. My dad offered him a job making like $15 an hour plus overtime. Dude would have been making $25.30/HR in 5 years time. He declined it because he knew that promotion would come any day now and he liked sitting on his ass driving all day. Eventually, our lease is up. He hadn't paid up on bills for a few months and didn't pay last month's rent. He ended up owing me like $1,200 in the long run. We are no longer friends. When you are obviously the one who cares more about the friendship. If you would drop everything to hang out, and they flake on you constantly, it's probably toxic. She just had a really f***ed up outlook about life. And expected everyone to constantly cater to that. And her constant self-deprecation, compliment fishing. It was exhausting. And eventually I just stopped contacting her. She never contacted me again. So I guess the feeling was mutual. They would talk about me behind my back. It made every interaction with them feel fake. Eventually you can't put up a facade anymore. Getting high went from something to enhance our activities to the activity. We started dabbling in harder stuff. There'd be days where I just didn't feel like it. And my friends would show up at my house and pound on my door to try and convince me to go with. It was such a weird thing to be pushy about that I started to back off and avoid them. Eventually I just cut off all contact because I planned on joining the military. This was about 9-10 years ago. Wow, I'm old. And they're doing about what you'd expect. Working dead-end jobs and half their pictures on social media are them getting high. It's not even like I was paying for it or even contributing. I was the poor kid. I'm not even fun. Just eat too much and pass TF out. The need to one-up you when you are just talking about something that happened to you recently. Semicolon. Bringing people down a peg because they want to be on the higher peg. It can be very subtle. Semicolon. Anger at your happiness because it isn't theirs. Semicolon. Surprisingly, I hang out with people who interrupt all the time and really don't have much of a problem with it. It's an ADHD thing. Aside from that, it's no bueno. Liars, liars, liars. Beware of people who lie. Gossip. If they talk badly about others to you. I went to one friend's house and on his wall he had a communist flag. As I'm reading these, it is sad. There should be some kind of checklist of 10 or 15 items that show if you should dump someone. One of those. If you checked 0, congrats. This is a good friend. 1-5. Person is okay. 5-10 This is borderline friend. Keep them under watch and maybe slowly edge them out of your life. 11-15 Get rid of this person. They are toxic. Because sometimes it is hard to see the forest for the trees. Hard to analyze. But checklists are easy to answer one question at a time. And results are pretty undeniable. I don't know. Girl used to stare at me while I was sleeping. She eventually stabbed me. Edit. I will add some background on it. I would wake up and catch her staring at me. She would either be right next to me or hovering over me. When I caught her, she would say things like, "Sorry. I'm just so fascinated by you. I can't help it." Ect. While sleeping, she stuck a knife in my leg. Why? Her reasoning was, "I didn't want anybody to take you from me. We have a restraining order now." He was always the victim in the shitty situations he ended up in. Turns out he was just a manipulative liar. Gaslighting. The number one sign of toxicity in any relationship, friendship or romance, is always insecurity. If somebody is painfully insecure, it's inevitably going to turn into abuse once they're comfortable with you. Especially if booze or drugs are involved. I'm not saying every insecure person is going to abuse you. Obviously some people are just shy. But almost every abusive person I've ever met was insecure first. Problems with booze or drugs simply aggravate the anger issues and boundary issues they keep hidden inside. A person who's insecure is paranoid about being hurt, even when there is no evidence in reality that will actually happen. An abuser takes that paranoia one step further and lashes out in an attempt to hurt you first. Not respecting boundaries.